Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. This is Doug Cunnington here, and in this episode, I'll be talking about the Aged Site case study. If you're new to this case study, there's a few more episodes out there, and in fact, there's a web page where I'm keeping like raw notes and some of the like helpful links. There's actually some screenshots for like traffic and earnings, at least some of the very early traffic and earnings that I've seen so far. So in this specific episode, I'm going to be having sort of a one-sided conversation with a listener, reader, and viewer named Frank. So thanks for sending in these questions, Frank. We had a little back and forth, and it's a good exchange. One thing I've realized is it's very helpful, especially when I'm trying to come up with show ideas and content ideas, to have someone asking specific questions about things that they are interested in. It turns out a lot of times if one person is interested or has a particular perspective or point of view, a lot of other people do too. So these are helpful, and we had a little bit of a back and forth because the questions were so specific. And if you have such questions, feel free to shoot me an email at feedback@doug.show. And there is a voicemail number in the show notes and everything, so you can actually just like leave a voicemail, which I could play on the air. All right. So I don't get too many of those. So if you put in the time, there's a high likelihood that it will show up on the air. So thanks to Frank for sending in these questions. And I'll kind of start at the beginning, but a lot of it is around the budget and, you know, what the scope of the budget is, how big it is, and how a person that is working with a different budget may still find the case study useful. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Plus, we'll get into a little bit of the like my very loose like ROI calculations so that I can move forward with this whole project, laying down a pretty good amount of money and hoping with at least a little bit of confidence that it's going to pay off in the long run. That show notes page, by the way, is at nichesiteproject.com/ASCS for Age Site Case Study. So if you want to check that out, that's sort of the home, at least for the time being, until I can write more thorough, sort of narrative style case study blog post for it. So you can get a hold of some of the stuff there. And if you are brand new, I'll say it quickly. Basically what we're doing here in this case study, we being me, is I am buying an age site from a vendor called Human Proof Designs, and I'm generally outsourcing all the activities that need to be done, from keyword research, writing content, building links, and actually those are the main things that a person has to do. So I'm outsourcing generally everything, and there's a few things that I'm going to be doing, but that is the general idea. And let's get into the questions here. So Frank says, thanks a lot for the Age Site case study post. It's awesome timing because I've just finished reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and I really loved it. It's so powerful for a mindset. It's a great book if people haven't read it. There's a couple things in there that, you know, maybe they're a little aged, but you'll get the idea about what Tim is talking about there. So Frank asked this: so is the purpose of the Age Site project to outsource almost everything? That's something I would like to do with affiliate websites. Can I share the range of investment so far? Or maybe I'm going too fast, blah, blah, blah. So my response back was, you know what? I'm a little bit literal in some cases. In fact, my wife tells me like she really needs to be careful how she asks me questions because sometimes I'm too literal. But I think part of it is I'm a smart ass. And then with these emails, I mean, I'm just a normal dude, to be honest with you. I'm standing in my closet recording this. I mean, I'm literally standing in my closet recording this. And the thing is, you know, I get a lot of emails, and if I get an email and I can give a smart ass remark or provide a smart ass answer, a lot of times that's what I'm going to do. Now, it may not be the best way to run such a front, like a public-facing business or something like that, but most of the stuff that I do is free. Most of the things that I do, it's just available for free. So if I'm busting your chops a little bit, I hope you take it in the right spirit. So here was generally my response. Number one, I said, thank you for the feedback. I am good at that. You always thank someone for taking the time to shoot you an email. It always takes longer to send someone an email versus not sending them an email. So generally, I did tell Frank, hey, I'm going to cover this stuff as it comes up, but I'm obviously giving everyone a bite-sized piece each time I release a piece of information about this age site. So Frank says, is the purpose to outsource almost everything? And I told him, no. I said, no way. The goal is to create an asset. I will outsource everything, but that is not the goal. Again, this is the semantics. And I even wrote that. I was like, semantics, I mean, I'm like, my goal is not, hey, I'm going to outsource everything. That is a dumb goal. However, my goal is to create an asset that makes money. And by the way, I will be outsourcing most of the activities. And Frank says, I would like to do that. And I was like, yeah, buddy, a lot of people want to do that. That's exactly why I'm getting into it. And as far as how much I've spent so far, and we are about like 1 month in from the very first money that I've put into it. So about 1 month in, I have spent about $6,000. I will be at about $10,000 in about another week or so. And I'll share spreadsheets and other information where I'm spending the money, like in a line item format, and what I got from it. So it'll be very clear. And I mentioned to Frank in this specific email, I was like, the context matters. Just knowing the amounts isn't as helpful unless you know the context and why I'm spending about $10,000 in a short time frame. And then I said, hey, if you have more questions, ask, because this is really helpful. So Frank took it in good spirits and said, hey, you're totally right. The goal is to build an asset. So he's like, what is the context then if that matters so much? And he also mentions it's kind of strange to see you doing a project in a short time frame. Also, it could be perfect for flipping. Thanks again for all the value. All right. So generally, the reason why I'm doing this in a quick time frame is I'm going to take some time off over the summer, right? So this right now, when I'm recording this, is early July of 2019. And I was like, hey, all right, I want work to be going on while I am away from my laptop, basically. So, why not? Why not do that? Especially the fact is, it takes a while to do the various pieces of work, whether it's, getting the content written or building links, right? Both of those things could take several weeks to happen. Those several weeks, I don't need to be doing shit on the site, right? I could just assign the work to the people that are doing it and then, go do whatever I want, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So from my perspective, there's no real point in making it take longer than it needs to. And typically the way services work, right? It is not a layaway plan or anything. So I need to have the money up front, pay it. I'm putting it all on credit cards because I get points from my credit card. So I can spend that elsewhere if I want to. And I always pay my credit cards off whenever, each month, so that I don't have any, interest accruing. I don't even know what it's called. I don't deal with that stuff so much. So the point is you pay for all of it up front, you assign the work, and then it'll be done over the course of a few weeks. So that is why I'm spending the money in a quick time frame. And Frank is saying, hey, it's kind of strange to see you do a project in a short time frame. Well, I mean, I guess the alternative is to make something take long. But I mean, the reason why I got an age site is so that I don't have to wait the 6 months for the Google Sandbox. I mean, this particular site is, well past the, 6 month mark. It's ranking for plenty of terms. It's it made money basically within the first 3 days that I had it in my possession. Not enough to not enough to, make it ROI positive, but it obviously showed promise and it is getting traffic. So that's a good thing. So I'll lay all this out when I actually write the blog post, but it's actually good for me to, say it out loud and talk through it, at least in this one-sided conversation with Frank. Moving on to the other thing that Frank was asking about is flipping. All right. So the idea with flipping is you build up some asset for some amount of money, and then you could sell it for more, right? You could do it with physical real estate. You could do it with, junk from Craigslist where you're flipping that stuff. You can do it with websites, or you could buy like an aged website and add value to it, hopefully increase the earnings, increase the traffic, and then try and flip it. Now, for me personally, that isn't super interesting, just because I enjoy the cash flow more than the just, cash that you can get from flipping. So that's just me personally. I'm not 100% sure why. That just feels better, but I like to see the monthly cash flow coming in, and that is positive, right? That's a positive thing for me versus having a huge amount of cash. I don't need a huge amount of cash for anything that I can think of. So just from a practical standpoint, I don't need, let's say for example, I'm just going to make up numbers here. So let's say for example, I put in $10,000 in the first 6 months, and then I'm just making up this example, and then I put in another $10,000 over the next 6 months, and then I'm able to sell the website for $200,000. Okay, so I put in $20,000, and then I could sell it for $200,000 sometime in the future. Let's say it's 3 years from now, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Me having an additional like $300,000, or did I say 200? It doesn't even matter, right? I don't really care, right? I'm thinking, oh man, if I get $200,000, I'm gonna have to pay like a shitload of taxes. Like that's how my mind is working. Yes, in the monthly cash flow situation, you have to pay taxes too. But just when I'm thinking about that, I'm just like, oh, if you sell it, you got to pay taxes. It's funny, my mind goes there. I think it's definitely a glass, maybe 3/4 full or something like that. So the point is, I don't need a big chunk of cash right now. And perhaps if I was buying a house, or if I needed to buy, 3 Teslas or something like that, it would be worth it, right? But I don't need those things, and I don't need a big influx of cash, so I don't really care. Now, I'm interested in what people think of me covering more like financial topics. I don't know much about finance other than, actually, I don't want to go off on too much of a rant here. So let's reel it back in here. Let's get back on topic. So I am interested in finance, so there will be more shows. I'll tell you right now, there's going to be more shows on like individual finance and financial independence and that sort of thing. All right, because I'm interested in that stuff. So we're going to be talking about it more. But the point is, I don't need an influx of cash. So I am lucky in that respect and fortunate, and the cash flow is interesting to me. So I don't care about flipping, although other people may find that more interesting. If you are interested in hearing about a time when I sold a website, I partnered with a friend of mine on a project called Project Go White Hat, and we converted a site from a gray hat site with private blog network links to a site that had guest posts for its links. And we sold it for $235,000 with Empire Flippers. So I have done some bit of, selling of a site, but, just on an ongoing basis, not what I'm trying to do. Next, Frank asked this. Okay, I'm going through my own age site case study, but he says at a different scale. And this is his main question. All right. So what about the ROI? So that's return on investment. And do I have a specific earnings goal in mind? And the last question is, can I take the same path with a 10% budget of yours? Is that going to be worth it? And for now, it seems like maybe it's not. So Frank has several questions in here. So I'm going to try to address them, hopefully in a kind of thorough way, but keep this in mind. I haven't created any like models like demonstrating what I'm about to tell you about. And I'm rolling kind of fast and loose with this. All right. So I'll be straight up. I had a pretty good idea in mind, but I haven't like mapped it out with projections and all that kind of stuff. That would have been way smarter. And I will be doing that. I'll be sharing some of that stuff, but the preliminary, I had enough confidence with the project in general that I was like, all right, let's do this thing. And as I have interacted with some of the fine listeners out there, like Frank, as I've, responded back, thought about, some of the areas that I'm working in, I was like, oh yeah, when I put this on paper or more likely in a Google sheet, maybe I'll do some graphs. I'm probably going to do some whiteboard work, map it out for folks so you could see kind of like my thought process here, and it'll be a little bit more clear. So if you're just a podcast listener, I definitely encourage you to, check out the YouTube videos on the Age Site case study, and all of those will be linked up on the page at Niche Site Project. So I'm going to try and like put everything together, but if you're only listening to the podcast, you're not getting all the information. And if you're only watching the YouTube videos, you're probably not getting all the information either. So it's not actually on purpose, but it's a happy accident that I'm trying to force you to consume in both formats. So it's just, I can't remember everything I say all the time. And I don't record like video when I'm recording the podcast and so on. Okay, let's get to the point here. The main thing that like Frank is asking about is, hey, if my budget is only like 10% of what your budget is, is it really going to be worthwhile? So right up front, my estimated budget within the first 6 months or so is going to be about $10,000 to $15,000 for the first 6 months. And you can imagine from what I just mentioned, I've already spent quite a bit of it. Most of it goes to human proof designs for the site, right? So that was one of the biggest assets. And then the other big chunk, pretty close to the same, is 50 articles from content development pros. All right. So that's who's writing the content for me. They're going to be drafting it in WordPress and everything. I will also, and actually I just got the proposal from Content Refined, and they are improving the existing content on the site. So that'll be, another set of content. And we haven't even gotten to the link building yet. And I'm working with the Hoth and Loganex. So those are the two guest posting services that I'll be working with. But getting back to Frank's question, he's like, hey, can I do the same thing for $1,000 to $1,500? All right. So he was like, hey, can I do the same thing with 10%? And can I get, something out of it? My answer is generally like, sure, you can try to follow in the footsteps, but if you're only putting in 10% of the resources, you could expect your results are going to be much, much smaller. So if you're only putting in 10%, you're probably only going to get 10% or less out of it. All right. You can do a lot of the work yourself. So if you want to perhaps, outsource a small portion of it and then put a lot of sweat equity, i.e. do the work yourself, sure, you could do it. Yeah, you could totally do it. There's no reason you have to even buy the site. All right. You could start everything from scratch. You could put in $1,000 and like you'll be roughly in the same shape. It'll just be a little bit further out. So part of the reason I'm doing this whole thing here is there are many people that have a large budget. In fact, it took me a little while to put all this together, but people contact me and they're like, hey, I'm an IT director. I've been doing it for 20 years. And, I make a lot of money. I have 50 or 100 people working for me, but it's kind of a drag and I want to have a little more freedom with my time. And basically there's no end in sight. It's like a sentence to just keep working, right? Keep working a nice high paying job with a reasonable amount of flexibility, but not much. And people want to get out of it and make their own decisions, right? It's pretty cool. That if I want to do this age site case study, I kind of look at my general plan, maybe talk to a couple people that are smarter than me to make sure they don't see any big, dumb mistakes that I'm about to make. And then I can just go for it, right? I don't have to go through all this middle management approval garbage, right? So anyway, there's a lot of people out there that do have a budget, and there's a lot of people out there, they're looking for just big sites, right? They would buy an existing site, but they don't have any of the skills. So they're kind of stuck. It sounds weird to say, but they're stuck with, $125,000, and they could buy a site for $90,000 and then use the other money to invest and improve the site. But they don't know what to do because they haven't done it before. They don't have the skills. It's very strange, but there's a lot of folks out there. And I know you're out there because a few of you email me, and I know there's other folks out there that don't necessarily contact me, but there's lurkers out there. So I know you're out there. Now, stick with me on this because we're going to start talking about the ROI and sort of my rough calculations, because Frank asked a very, very good question. What's my revenue goal here, right? So what's the revenue goal? The answer is, I have no idea, because that is very hard to estimate and calculate. There are so many factors. Now, the sort of prospectus that Human Proof Designs puts together, they have some amount that they are estimating. But I have a pretty major issue with the way those calculations are done. So it's based on the keywords that they found. They make various assumptions. I don't have the sheet in front of me. I should have it in front of me. Perhaps I'll do an episode and I could talk through some of the stats and numbers with the Human Proof folks, because they do the best that they can with those estimates. But here's the thing, right? So let's say there's 10 factors in there. They're assuming the number of keywords that might rank, the number of keywords that are already on the site, the position in which those will rank, and the amount of traffic that those keywords might get based on the keyword search volume and where they ranked, and then the price of the products, right? And then a few other factors like the conversion rate and the amount of traffic and how long, and so on and so forth. As you can imagine, it's quite a few. And for the statistic people, your analytical folks out there, you're probably thinking, all right, well, what's the certainty for any one of those factors? Well, I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows. But let's just say it's 80%. Each one of those factors is 80%. And what you come up with, I should have done some math ahead of time. With my simple calculator on my phone, I'm not going to be able to do this math very easily. But what you end up with is a certainty factor that is very low, because what you're doing is you're taking 80% times 80% times 80%, 10 times in a row. So it's 80% to the power of 10. And then you're multiplying it by that factor and you're like, oh man, this is kind of just a roll of a 20-sided die, right? We really don't know what's going to happen. So my whole point there is, I believe the estimate was $4,000 per month based on their potential income calculator, right? And I was like, okay, that's just, it's kind of a guess, right? You got to start somewhere. You got to guess. And then you could adjust it along the way. So I don't blame Human Proof Designs for coming up with that sort of prospectus. They have a lot of data that they're leaning on to understand how they ended up with those factors. But in my estimation, when I looked at it, I was like, oh, you know what? They're only basing it on what's on the site now and the keywords that they have sort of outlined. But I know there's a lot more keywords out there. In fact, I bought 50 more keywords from Human Proof Designs that are keyword golden ratio compliant. They got them over to me in just less than a week, just a few days. And I got all those keywords over to Content Development Pros. So automatically, I know, the potential is probably higher than the $4,000. Now, do I think I could hit that? Maybe sometime. I don't know when, right? I don't have like a good handle on that. And this is going to get us into sort of the uncertainty factors here. So if I picked a goal that was based on revenue, it's binary, right? You hit it or you don't hit it. If I picked a goal based on traffic numbers at a certain, number of months, same deal. It's either you hit it or you don't. So it's like you reached your goal or you failed. I don't want to operate that way. Part of the reason I was confident to, start this case study is over time, the site's probably going to make money. I've mentioned it a couple of times. It will probably be fairly hard to completely screw up and make the site make $0. And, the fact that it's making, a little bit of money already is great. All right. So if I could be a little bit ahead of the curve from what I would see from students of mine, then I'll be happy with that. So I guess in sort of a way, I'll mention some time boxed goals here. So I know that on average, if someone completes 5-Figure Niche Site, the course, and they do the prescribed work in the right order and all that kind of stuff, on average, the average person will make about $100 per month by month 6. Some people do it at month 3. Some people do it at month 9. It depends on how much work they put in and how much the products cost and all that stuff. So based on that, if I can hit $100 per month before 6 months, I'm like, nah, that's good. I feel good about that. And the way things are going, I feel like that's achievable. Now, again, that's not the main goal though. So the main thing I want to do is focus on the system, right? I want to focus on the system of building a site, and I know those pieces that work. And there are two main things, right? It's content and then backlinks. And some people favor one over the other. I kind of like a blend of the two. I think working together, you get the best results if you have like good content and enough of it and backlinks versus just focusing on one or the other. Now, if I can just be a little bit ahead of the curve, I will be happy with that. So my main point is I want to focus on the system, and that system is, taking action and publishing content, improving content, and adding backlinks. So those are what we call the leading indicators, right? So if I put in effort for the leading indicators, right? That's where I'm spending my time on content and links. Over time, I've seen that work. If I focus on what we call lagging indicators, those are on the tail end. Those are the results that we see. Those results are often very much delayed and maybe not connected to the activity that we're taking. So the thing is, I could publish a lot of content and I may not see more traffic for several weeks or maybe even a couple months. I can add backlinks and maybe I don't see the impact to the rankings for 4 weeks or 8 weeks or even 6 months. And the thing is, it's hard to tell, like, did those work or not? But I do know over time through my experience that adding more content and adding links, those leading indicators, those are the ones that I need to spend time on because it's proven, right? Both of those activities over time, I've proved that those work. So focusing on those leading activities, those leading indicators is going to be more effective than if I'm just like, okay, have I made more money yet? All right, what did I do last week to make more money? And if you start if you're focusing too much on those lagging indicators, it could be a little bit difficult to understand like what is effective for you. So all that to say, when we're talking about ROI, and I'll actually get this, I wrote it down, so I'm gonna say it in a little bit more, this will be more clear, all right? So for the ROI, here's what I told Frank. I'll base it generally on the valuation, right, of 25 to 35 times the monthly profit. So for the people that are unaware, usually the valuation of like a website or most businesses, you can assume it's 2 to 3 years the annual profit, right? 2 to 3 years the annual profit, or another way to say it is 25 to 35 times the monthly profit. So if the monthly profit is about $428 to about $600 per month, that will be roughly $10,000 to $15,000 of a valuation. All right. So the reason why I'm aiming at the $10,000 to $15,000 is that is what I am investing. All right. So that is how we figure it up. Now the valuation it's a little bit soft, right? That's based on some projections. Now to actually be ROI positive, I'll need to make about $428 for 3 years or $600 for 2 years. Again, we're breaking it down on a monthly basis of profit. Now, for the very smart people out there, you're probably thinking, well, what about inflation? What about opportunity costs and blah, blah, blah? Yeah. So these are not exact numbers. These are just, back of the napkin, just rough stats to help us understand like the general magnitude of what we're aiming at here. So finally, just as an arbitrary sort of example here, if I can get the monthly revenue to about $2,000 per month, or actually we'll call it profit, the profit to about $2,000 per month, ROI positive will be at about 7.5 months. All right. So obviously when I map it out on a spreadsheet, I can show potentially, these would just be like projections, right? Guesses. I could show revenue growing from whatever, $30 a month to 200 to 500 to 2,000. And then slowly you can see that the investment is being paid back. And after some point in time, the initial investment will be paid back. And after that, it will just be profit. So that's how I'm sort of figuring up the ROI. And from my estimation, if I can get the revenue up to roughly 500, maybe $800 a month, I could potentially sell the site in, 6, 8, 10 months, something like that, a year, 18 months. Like the longer you have proven consistent revenue and traffic, the higher multiple you can get. But the main idea here is like, if I can get the revenue up to, $600 a month, it's going to be ROI positive. And if I can get it even higher, right, which I believe I can, I think I can make over $1,000 per month from the site. The valuation will be even higher, right? So then it's a no-brainer. But as I said before, I have a very low to no interest in actually selling the site when I finish doing the project. Kind of want to keep it so I can keep making money from it. Now, things change. I'm not so stubborn that I'm going to say, I'll never sell the thing. Maybe that'll be a great finish to the case study. Like buy an age site, build it up, keep it full for a few years, like make all your money back and then sell it for even more, right? Maybe that's interesting. So anyway, for the people out there that have a stronger financial background than myself, maybe you're in accounting, or maybe you just, maybe you're smarter than me. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there. Send me your questions. Also send me the corrections. I think there's been a few episodes here where, I'm barely prepared. All right. I was looking at my phone at the email that I sent back to Frank there. So, I'm barely prepared. So I'm sure a lot of this, I'm talking out of my ass a little bit, and I appreciate your patience. Hopefully it brings you confidence that if I can pull it off, then you can too, right? If this Joker standing in his closet can do this stuff, you can do it too. I mean, he could barely work a spreadsheet. He didn't even figure out some of the, most basic stuff before he started recording. I mean, what am I even doing here? And you can send those emails to feedback@doug.show. And there's also the voicemail number if you want to leave a message like I mentioned before. All right, now before we close out, I have one of my little stories here. I think maybe a few of you can relate to this at least. So I was like, doing my work here at the apartment, and I heard a package arrive, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. I thought it was like something I ordered, but it wasn't. It was for my wife. She got some clothes online, and she was excited to get them. And then she was like, all right, like, I need your opinion on some of these things. Now you're probably already thinking, oh, Doug, man, you should look out for that kind of thing. Man, that sounds like a trap. And I know, man, I feel you. And I knew it was a trap. I mean, it's not really a trap. It's just like, I want to get a opinion. Like if my wardrobe is very basic at this point. I'm wearing a lot of like plain t-shirts. I don't even have that many colors. I'm just doing like black and white mostly. But my wife was like, all right, let me try on these pants. They're too tight. I'm going to have to exchange them, but I want to get your opinion on the print, stripes on here. So I want to get your opinion. I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh man, this is not going to be good. So I'm standing in the kitchen. She's trying on the pants. She's like, what do you think? Do you think do you think it looks funny? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think it looks fine, but I'm really not the right person to ask because, I don't know it looks kind of fashionable, but I'm not really up with the trends or anything like that. I'm trying to bow out, right? I'm trying to, okay, how can I get out of this? Give some opinion. I'm like, it looks good. And I wouldn't notice. So I'm stuttering, and as much as I'm struggling, just reliving it right now, telling you the story, I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of this. I don't know. And I did tell her at the end of the day, like being honest is what they say, right? Be honest and just like be straight up. So I was like, you know what? It does look a little funny. Like they're kind of wide, like they're tight around the waist. And she's like, oh, ignore the waist. I'm going to exchange them because it's too tight. And I was like, okay. But I was like, they get wide at the bottom, like, I don't know. Is that how they're supposed to look? Is that right? Are they supposed to look wide like that at the bottom? I don't know. It looks a little funny to me, but if that's what they're supposed to be, then yeah, they look great. And she's like, well, how about the stripes? Are the stripes okay? And I'm like, yeah, fuck, sure. Stripes are great. The stripes are fine. It's everything else. Then she got a dress as well. And you can imagine how well that went. This particular dress, well, it looked a little funny. I thought it was kind of a maternity style. I said as much. And I think she ended up exchanging both of those. Fortunately, there was a local store. She ordered online, but she's returning them to the store. And I think that's happening today, right now as I speak. So I made it through that one, guys and gals. I'm sure there's some women out there laughing at me as well. I mean, I do what I can. I try to be diplomatic, but when you're talking to your spouse, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. So with that, I think we're going to sign out. Don't forget to check out the case study page, nichesiteproject.com/ASCS for age site case study. And don't forget, there's videos on this stuff, and you can get the visuals. You can see me drawing pictures, perhaps, sometimes just talking. But check out the YouTube stuff. You just search for Doug Cunnington. You could find it out there. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening to The Doug Show. I really do appreciate it. I mean, I'm just sitting here at my computer recording stuff, and you're listening to it, and I think that's awesome. If you enjoy the show and you know someone who maybe would be interested in it, please let them know. I think it would be fantastic if you help spread the word. If you are not signed up for the Niche Site Project email list, well, you're in luck. All you have to do is go to nichesiteproject.com, click the green button, enter your name and email address, and I'll send you a bunch of cool stuff about affiliate marketing, productivity, including all my templates. If you happen to not be subscribed to this podcast, please do subscribe, and don't forget, I welcome your questions. So you could send your emails to feedback@doug.show. I got that really cool domain, doug.show, that's it. So feedback@doug.show, or I'm going to leave my voicemail number in the show notes. So all you have to do is give me a buzz, leave a voicemail, and then I'll potentially put you on the air. So looking forward to it, and we'll catch you next time.